You guys can both sign in now.
Okay.
Says Earl Wardell raised his hand.
Oh. You got us as panelists?
I have no clue.
I don't think so, because I have no access to that. There we go.
Carol, you online already?
Did someone just ask me to unmute?
Yes, because Paul was talking to you.
Oh, all right.
No, Carol, I was just making sure I was connected, that's all.
You are.
Okey doke. I'm gonna do what most people would like me to do. I'm gonna mute myself.
There you go. Jennifer, I'm not sure if you can see your picture or if you can hear me, but
Hey, it's Jen. Yeah, it's blurry. I don't know what's going on with that. I tried adjusting it and cleaning the camera,
okay,
but it doesn't seem like it's gonna.
not going to clear up. Okay.
It may be it's a work computer, so it may be some restrictions.
Okay.
I'm looking. I'm trying to fix it.
I didn't know if you were aware of it. That's all.
I know.
Abigail, did you have a question? Abigail?
I'm talking.
Carol, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to hang up Larry so it's not confusing. Larry had just called me to find out where the chat function was on my screen.
The-
And so I told him where it was. So I clicked on it just to make sure I was correct. And that's probably, so it showed that I had, that the hand was raised, but it was only to try and see if it was functional.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Okay.
I just saw the raised hand and I figured you had a question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad it worked.
So that would be
It did.
for the
Okay.
more and chat.
I'll tell people
And just let me show you quickly. I know you get. I have the.
Carol's got everything, she said.
I've got this up too, but if she's got it, okay. And does that would be that Article 5?
Okay,
Okay. Good luck.
thanks. We will.
You need it, yeah. I'm glad it's you. Yep.
Figure out how to get the raised hand icon on a webinar, so it doesn't seem to be clear. But on
to
Zoom
see.
and YouTube, the phone, it's pretty easy, but on this.
Hi, Ben.
All right, so you want me to change them or something? All right, we'll be back. Yeah, all right, so if you pop over them, it's easy, right? Yeah, and then I'll type in that box and then. All right, so, new effort. Oh, you're welcome, Sheila.
Hi, Carol. Ben Gauthier signing in.
Hi.
Hi.
8958. Oh, boy, I thought 8958. Sorry.
Hi, George.
Hi, Carol. Betty Ann's here too.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Betty Ann.
So far, so good?
So far.
Yeah, girl. You know where she is. She's in the safe.
No.
The safe.
Thank you for all your hard work, Carol.
A lot of work.
I'll be happy when this is all done.
Me too.
I know.
Me too. So I can mute myself if I want, right?
Yeah. Jim, did you have a question?
Carol.
Yeah,
Now I'm noticing on the bottom of my screen that it actually does say raise hand.
it should.
Before, yeah, so that has now appeared on the bottom of my screen along with chat and Q&A.
Okay,
There's actually an icon that says raise hand.
that's what I thought there should have been.
Yeah, there wasn't earlier, but now it's there. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim Griffin, I see your hand is raised. Did you have a question? Roger, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, you kind of answered it. I just wanted to know if I am logged in and my wife Suzanne is logged in.
You are both logged in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Janice or Jim, I see you both have raised hand.
Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Hi. So I didn't have to type in my number, my password, and neither did my husband.
Correct. So long as you use the link that we sent you, you would not have had to have typed it in.
Oh, okay.
So,
Thank you.
so you've
Nope.
got us, we're good.
You're good. I have you.
All right,
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
that's reassuring.
Carol, are we both logged in, Betty and I?
Well, you're logged in with me recognizing that she's with you.
You got it.
So
Thank you.
when we have a vote, we will pay attention to your screen so we can know how she votes as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Janice Filozzo, I see you have your
Yeah,
hand.
yeah. Bill and I've got two people here, William Guida,
Yes,
as well as myself.
yes.
Okay,
I do have that listed on our spreadsheet that you're both at the same location.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Carol, it's Jen. Where is the raise your hand feature?
Is along the bottom of the screen where all those other tools are. It should be a little hand that says raised hand.
All right, I see mute, start, participants, QA, chat, share screen, record, and leave.
You're a panelist, though.
So I don't get, do I get to, I don't get to raise my hand?
your hand.
All right, and I can't get the, I don't know, it's my work computer, they must have security on it, no video.
Okay, all right. Good to
Sorry.
know. Thank you.
They're all ready for it.
Okay, thank you.
This is Larry. The panelists, at least on my screen, can raise their hand if they go to the participants screen, click on the panelists column and find the raise hand command at the bottom of that box.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sure she heard you.
But it's sort
Great,
of
thanks. Yeah,
it's sort of hiding. You know, you've got to click on that participants icon at the bottom.
all right.
And
Thank you.
I have a couple of raised hands on the other side that I've got to find out what their questions are. So if you two need to talk further, would you mind doing it in the chat box for me? Thank you. Let's see. Oh, I keep hitting these buttons. Carolyn Montgomery, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, you're not hearing me.
I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
I can. When you'll be on mute unless you raise your hand and I ask you to unmute yourself, and then you can speak.
Oh, all right, I have to wait until you unmute me, or I unmute you.
Yes, I'll send you a message. Once I see the hand raised, I will ask you to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Carol.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm fine. I saw the raised hand. Did you need something?
I just wanted to make sure Karen and I were logged in. I went to do the other one for myself. I got Karen's on.
I do see
I went-
Karen.
And I went to do mine and it said it was still pending approval.
Oh, that's not accurate, but okay. I'll have, all right, well, I tell you what, only because I'm actually in the throes of the streaming now, I'll recognize that both of you are on Karen's name, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
You're welcome. Okay. Hi, Mike. Did you have a question?
No, I just want to make sure I'm logged in and ready to go.
Okay, yes, you are. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sue, did you have a
Hi,
question?
I just wanted to be sure I was logged into. I wasn't sure, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murdoch, did you have a question?
Did you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Can Barbara and I be on one computer as opposed to being on two separate computers?
Yes, I can hear you have feedback. So yes, we'll just, if you let yours be the surviving one and have her sign off, you'll be fine.
Thank you. She'll sign off. Thank you.
Leave? Okay. Yeah, I think that was the not.
Michelle, did you have a question?
I just want you to know that I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We were trying to eat our leftovers. Do you want to eat? Jamie's cooking up a storm.
We have to turn this one.
Did you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, Judy and I will be on the same computer.
Okay.
I've got an echo. We're on two machines here, so we'll just go on this one.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll log out of the other. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good evening, Carol.
Good evening. I don't know who I'm saying hello to, but hello.
Okay. It's Craig.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Roger, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Carol. Mary is here with me, but she didn't register. Did you want to make a note that she's here or?
I will make a notation.
Did you have a question? Thank you. Yeah, hi, Carol. Mary is here with me, but she didn't register. Do you want to make a note that she's here or? That's the only question I have. Thanks, Carol.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, hi, Carol. Mary. You're all set?
I've never seen this.
Sue, if you have a question, can you put it in the chat box? I have some feedback from the live stream.
Okay.
Where is it? It's not up top. It's not up top where it usually is. I turn it off. I can't hear what they're talking about. I want to mute it.
What's that? I'm gonna turn that down.
We can move over there if you want.
I can't hear you.
We could sit over there
Oh, okay.
and then, yeah, turn it down some.
Hey, Carol,
Yes.
it's Paul. I don't see the solicitor anywhere. Is he on board?
Let me check.
Hey, Carol. Yes. It's Paul. I don't see the solicitor anywhere. Is he on board?
Let me check. All right, I had to stop the live stream because it is giving a feedback in a loop where it just keeps going around in circles.
This change request.
Since this was published for all of the registered voters, I don't have a problem with that. I just am sorry that people aren't going to be able to see it that way.
Within the auto shop.
I am double checking to see whether or not the solicitor is signed in. I haven't seen his name yet.
ATP 282 presented in the amount of $2,396 for walk-in lighting adjustments. This change is for the addition of power.
Someone
for
has
lights
their sound
in the
still
walk-in
on because
cooler
I
and
can
freezer.
hear the TV.
ATP 286 presented in the amount of $2,660.
Ah, thank you. No, I agree. I do not see him. If you give me a second to step away from the video, I will see if we can't figure out where he is. Oh, I take that back. He's signed in. Oh, something's wrong here. All right, hang on, guys. Nope. Oh, my Lord. Okay, got rid of that. Sorry. All right. It might confuse him a little bit, but I've promoted the Richard Humphrey, the solicitor, up to a panelist. Okay. All right, so he is there.
Carol, should we start?
We can. We do have a quorum. There are 176 total participants, including panelists, but 6 of them are non-registered voters allowed to be in for town officials. So
Okay.
you have a quorum.
Yeah. Okay, so a quorum being present, I call the 2020 Little Compton Financial Town Meeting to order. Carol, I just want to confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay. There are currently 3,057 registered voters in town, and according to Section 305 of the Little Compton Home Rule Charter, a quorum for a financial town meeting is 5%, which is 153 voters this year, and we're a little over 170 right now. So welcome. Tonight is historic. In 300 plus years of holding town meetings, this is our first virtual town meeting in Little Compton. I ask you all to be patient with any issues we have in conducting the meeting. It's the first time for all of us, and we're all doing our best under the circumstances brought about by the COVID-19 circumstances. Some aspects of the meeting, such as voting, may take a bit longer than with an in-person meeting, but we want to make sure that everything is done correctly and accurately. Several people, including Town Council President Bob Mushin, Budget Committee Chair George Kroll, and Town Administrator Tony Texera, were very involved in getting us organized for this meeting. However, I want to particularly thank Town Clerk Carol Wardell and Councilor Larry Anderson for their outstanding leadership in conceiving and executing on this plan. I'm going to go through several announcements and procedures at this time. While I'm doing that, though, I would like to ask all of you to locate the raise hand icon on your Zoom screen. That's going to be needed later for voting. It may be on the bottom of your screen among the other icons, a picture of a hand. If you don't see it there, then if you click on participants, you'll get another pop-up screen, and at the bottom of the list of participants, there should also be a raise hand sign that you can push. But while I'm going through the procedures, why don't you please take a minute to find that icon so that you'll have it ready for when we get into voting in a few minutes.
I do have.
There are two candidates running.
Oh.
There are two candidates running for the two available seats on the Budget Committee. This election will be conducted at the end of the financial town meeting via Zoom, so please stay logged in for that. The requirement that polls remain open for 30 minutes after the end of financial town meeting has been waived under the Town Council's Special Directive 4 under the emergency powers granted by the state of Rhode Island during the current crisis. I'd like to thank Suzanne Madden for agreeing to continue her service as Assistant Town Moderator. I'd also like to thank Sheila and Heather in Carol Wardell's office for the incredible amount of extra work that was required to get everyone pre-registered for this meeting. A summary listing of procedures was included at the front of the Budget Committee report. I'd like to thank the Budget Committee for, again, including that. I'm going to emphasize a few things. Some are the same as for every other financial town meeting, and some will be particular to this format. My goal this evening as town moderator is to have this be an orderly, clear, and fair meeting. The conduct of this meeting is not governed by Robert's rules. There are certain aspects of the meeting that are addressed by our charter, by state law, and by emergency directives of the Town Council. My intention is that so long as we comply with those provisions, I'm going to conduct this meeting based on common sense and fairness, not on a strict application of oftentimes arcane and confusing procedures, which potentially would be even more confusing in our current circumstances. I'll recognize the Budget Committee Chair for making the first motion on each article, and Budget Committee member Craig Curtis to second each initial motion. Once seconded, that motion will be subject to discussion and amendment. We'll deal with and dispose of one amendment at a time. I'm not going to permit amendments to amendments. Also, I'm giving the meeting, as in recent history, one bite at the apple. The meeting gets one chance to increase and one chance to decrease any article. So if you want to increase or decrease an appropriation, know that if it fails, there will not be a second chance to amend that article in the same direction. Group motions will be accepted as is permitted under Section 304 of the Charter. Amendment of and debate on individual articles within the group is permitted, as is an amendment to separate one or more articles from the group motion. So if the Budget Committee Chair makes the motion to consider articles for appropriation in a block vote, if that passes, you will still be able to, or I'm sorry, if that is seconded, you will still be able to amend articles within the block, or you can also attempt to amend his motion to pull articles out of that block, either way. So there's no loss of ability to try to change any of the articles of appropriation or to have discussion on any of the individual articles within the block vote. If you wish to make a motion or speak to a motion, you must signal so by using the raise hand icon, which hopefully you've all been able to find. If you're on a landline phone, you signal by pushing *9, which has the same effect as the raise hand icon. I or the clerk will recognize you. She will unmute you so that you can be heard. Please state your name before making a motion or speaking to a motion. My objective is to let all who wish to speak be heard, but I reserve the right to limit the time or frequency if I feel that is necessary. Comments should be addressed through the moderator and not at or to individuals. When I ask for a vote, you must signal your intention by using the raise hand icon. As I mentioned before, on a landline, you signal your intention by pushing *9. Once those votes have been registered, the clerk will lower your hands. And as we go through this, Carol and I may be communicating regularly to make sure that we're not missing anything. So again, just please be patient. Given that voting by Zoom is anonymous to all except me and the clerk, will not be permitting paper ballot votes this year at Financial Town Meeting. So our first order is to accept the report of the town treasurer into the record of this meeting.
Scott?
The report lists, yeah.
Before we do that, there's been a raised hand here, and I don't know if he has a question or if he accidentally raised the hand. It's Patrick Griffin. Okay. So I'm going to ask him to speak, to unmute himself, and offer us what his question was.
Carol, that was just when I was checking in. I wasn't sure if I was connected or not.
Thank
So
you.
it's
I just didn't,
this is
I didn't
first,
want you to lose out on a question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So our first order is to accept the report of the town treasurer into the record of this meeting. The report lists the balances of various town accounts as of March 31st of this year. The treasurer has provided me with a copy of her report and can provide them to anyone who wants one if they stop by our office in Town Hall. I'll entertain a motion to accept the treasurer's report and waive its reading.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please signal aye by clicking on the raise hand icon.
They're still coming in. Okay. I have 142 I. Oh, 140. Oh, I guess I'll wait. We'll give it another few seconds.
Okay.
It might take some people to find their hand symbol. Okay, 159 in favor.
Okay, so the ayes have it. It's an overwhelming percentage of the total participants voted aye for that motion. I'm now going to recognize Budget Committee Chair George Kroll to say a few words about the meeting and this year's season, et cetera. Go ahead, George.
Thank you, Scott. To begin with, I'd like to thank Jennifer McHugh, who served several years on the Budget Committee. She's decided not to run again. We will miss her, but thank you very much for your time and service, Jennifer. I would also like to thank Carol Wardell, who has worked tirelessly on this Budget Committee report, setting up our Zoom public hearing at our Budget Committee meeting of last night. She is the person that compiles the entire Budget Committee report. There's an awful lot that goes into it. I hope you've taken the time to look at the letter from the Budget Committee to the voters of Little Compton at the beginning of the report. That was written by Ben Gothier. I thank him very much for that. I'm very grateful to the members of our Budget Committee, our town administrator, our town council, John McNamee at the school, Tony Texera, our town administrator, I mean, everybody, including Scott Morrison, has done a phenomenal job this year. We are pleased to present the report that has been mailed to you. Thanks, Scott.
Scott, I do have a
Thanks,
hand
George.
that's raised.
Okay.
Abigail, did you have a question?
No, I accidentally, lowered my hand. I'm sorry. Raised it and lowered it.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, so with that, we'll move to the warrant articles. We'll start with the first 5, which are worded strokes, which I will, as in past practice, I'll read each article. I'll ask for a motion, a second, any discussion, and then we'll call for a vote on each of those. So Article number 1, to authorize and direct the town treasurer to receive funds from the state of Rhode Island, the federal government, and private and other sources, and to credit these funds to the proper appropriated town accounts or to other town meeting designated accounts. Said funds so received would reimburse the town for specific expenditures or be in anticipation of specific expenditures within said accounts. The expenditure of said funds so received exceeding $300,000 in total from one source or for one project or purpose shall only be spent as authorized by vote of the town meeting or a special town meeting. All other monies would continue to be deposited into the general fund. Do I have a motion to accept Article 1 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any raised hands, Carol?
I do have 3 raised hands.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I got more. Let's see. Oh boy. Gonna give me a second. I'm afraid that they're thinking that you asked them to vote already.
Right.
May I make it clear that we did not ask for a vote on this at this point? We were asking if there was discussion on the motion that was read. So if you were.
Or maybe if you want to lower them and then give people a chance if they have
Yeah,
discussion
I'm
to
gonna lower their
re-raise their
hands
hand.
again. There is one panelist that has their hand up as well. So Jennifer, you want to lower your hand?
I'm lowering.
Okay, I got it. Okay. All right, so I believe the moderator asked if there was any discussion on that.
Correct.
I see no raised hands.
Great. So those in favor of the motion as presented, please vote aye by clicking on the raise hand icon. How are we doing, Carol?
They're still coming in.
Okay.
In the beginning, I'm sorry, I was busy. Did you read off every counselor and every budget committee member that was in attendance?
No.
It might be good for the record to make that clear.
Okay.
Okay. They seem to have stopped. So we have 165 that are in favor.
Okay. So the ayes have it. That's an overwhelming percentage of the registered participants. So as Carol requested, I'll read off the budget committee and council members who are in attendance. So we have Bob Mushin from the council, Paul Gombeski for the council, Andrew Moore for the council, Gary Mataronis, and who am I missing?
Larry.
Oh, Larry Anderson, sorry. Can't forget Larry. So those are the council members in attendance. Budget committee members in attendance: George Kroll, Craig Curtis, Chris Goulart, Ben Gauthier, and Jen McHugh.
I have a
set with
raised
that, Carol?
hand and I'm not sure whether it's discussion or not. So this may be our evening.
Okay.
Karen, did you raise your hand?
No, Carol, it was for the vote.
Okay, thank you.
All righty.
Okay, so moving on to Article 2, to authorize the town treasurer to accept private donations to all private funds set up by the Little Compton Town Council. Said funds to be expended only after approval of the various committees and authorization and approval of the town council. Do I have a motion
Mr.
to
Moderator,
approve Article 2 as presented?
Mr. Moderator, so moved.
Do
Second.
I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Not a vote, just discussion.
She says it, and I'll call for you.
It's hard to understand.
Carol, do we have anyone looking to
No.
discuss?
No discussion.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, we're getting the hang of this. So I now will call for a vote on Article 2 as presented. So those of you who vote aye, please click on your raised hand icon.
Okay, we have 165 voting in favor.
Okay, so the ayes have it. Again, overwhelming percentage of those participating. Article 3, to authorize the Little Compton Housing Trust to receive monies, including state and federal grant monies, to receive or acquire any real or personal property by grant, gift, bequest, purchase, or device, and to convey or lease real estate and or buildings, so long as such conveyances shall be in keeping with the purposes of the Housing Trust and in conformance with Section 103 of the Little Compton Town Charter. Said real or personal property may be held in any manner so long that said acquisition and improvement are consistent with the mission of the trust. Furthermore, to authorize the Housing Trust to expend up to $6,000 from the Housing Trust Fund during fiscal year 2021 for the purpose of the trust as provided in Section 2-9.2 of the Town Code and Section 710 of the Home Rule Charter. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Moderator, so
Sorry,
moved.
for Article 3 as presented.
Mr. Moderator, so moved.
Second,
Do I have a second?
second,
All right, so not calling a vote, we're just calling for any discussion.
Oh, well, I see a hand, but I'm not sure if it was somebody jumping the gun. Let me see. Isabel?
Hi, yeah, no, I'm raising my hand on purpose.
Okay.
I have an amendment that I'm gonna propose later on to a different part of the budget, but what I'm asking is to oppose something that comes later that would add funds into the housing trust. So do I need to amend this, or can I leave this the way it is and kind of do that separate?
What is the other article that you want to amend? Or you're going to want to amend?
Article number 30, item number 32, capital budget.
Yeah, I would say that when we go through deal with Article 3 first and then do capital expenditures as part of the.
Okay, so I don't need to change this one in order to do something like that. Great.
No,
That's
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Any further discussion?
No.
All right, those in favor of Article 3 as presented, please vote aye by clicking on the raise hand icon.
Okay, it seems to have stopped at 156 in favor. Oh, yeah, 156 in favor.
Okay, so the ayes have it. Thank you. We'll move on to Article 4. To authorize the reserve fund to receive up to $100,000 from the accumulated revenues from the lease of the cell tower at the transfer station, subject in all respects to the conditions of the Little Compton Town Charter, Section 512. Authorized expenditures from the reserve fund in the current fiscal year are to be reimbursed from the cell tower lease revenues in the coming fiscal year. Do I have a motion to approve Article 4 as presented?
Moderator, so moved.
Mr.
Do I have a
Moderator.
second?
So second.
Okay, I'm not calling for the vote yet, but do we have any discussion on Article 4? If so, please use your raise hand icon.
There is one.
Okay,
Mr. Rotman?
Hi, every time I get to vote, instead of saying you voted, they say you wish to speak. Are you getting those votes?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
There was one
Any
more hand. Let me
other
click on
discussion?
that.
okay.
Two more. Patrick McHugh? I don't know why. Nope.
Patrick?
I don't think he wants to speak.
He does not want to speak.
Mute him.
Okay.
All right. I have another one. One moment.
Okay.
Mrs. McKenzie?
Joanna?
I asked her to unmute, but I don't think she's done. Oh, there we go.
I pushed it too soon.
Okay.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, so we'll move to voting. So if you are in favor of approving Article 4 as presented, please vote aye by clicking on your raise hand icon.
I have 162 in favor.
Okay, so the ayes have it. Thank you. So for the final worded stroke, number 5, to authorize as per section 103 of the Home Rule Charter, the town council to enter into negotiations for the purpose of acquiring property or a portion of said property for municipal purposes located at Plat 40, Lot 83, and to further authorize the town council to pursue financing options as may be needed, but not to exceed limitations of Article 1. Do I have a motion to approve Article 5 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I offer a second.
Do I have any discussion?
I see one hand. Let me see if I can. Oh, I see two hands. Mr. McGarvey?
Yes. What is this plant you're talking about?
Would someone like to answer that, maybe from the council?
Yes, I'll do that, moderator. Approval of this article would allow the town council on behalf of the town to negotiate to potentially acquire the 7.7 acre lot immediately north of the transfer station. As the conversation and discussion has unfolded, first of all, acquisition of this property gives us some opportunities to do things on that space that we don't have now. The town owns a 7.2 acre lot south of, but not adjacent to, the transfer station. What our negotiation right now is involved in is an exchange of those two properties, and that would be the plan, to limit it to a simple exchange of properties with no cash value on either side. The advantage of that would be that we could modify the transfer station entrance. We could effect other changes for the improvement of the transfer station. We could even erect a public works building on land that's not formally used as a landfill. So it represents an opportunity. There's nothing that's explicitly in the capital plan at the moment that would take advantage or would use that property, but we think it makes sense to attempt to acquire contiguous land to the transfer station.
Okay, thank you. I see.
Any further discussion, Carol?
No.
Could, this is Councilmember Anderson.
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm, is there any reason to amend this article to include the 2 lots mentioned by Councilmember Mushin rather than just one?
I'm open to it. If someone wants to make that amendment, I'll certainly allow it.
I'm just wondering whether it would make, if the ultimate transaction involves the acquisition of a new parcel and the conveyance of an existing town parcel, I'm wondering whether it'd be wise to identify both in this motion, because it's my belief and understanding that the charter requires a financial town meeting vote to convey town property. So it might be wise to seek that approval now. I don't have the other lot number at hand, but I could, I just wonder if Mr. Mushin has a thought on that.
We certainly could do that. The other lot number is 91-1, 91-1. I counted that as part of what I would expect we would have for negotiation, and included that under pursuing financing options as may be needed. But certainly there'd be no harm in identifying it by number. That's the only lot under consideration.
The only, this is.
Sorry, the
Bob,
only.
do you want to,
consideration for.
Bob or Larry, do you want to offer an amendment to represent that or to reflect that?
This is Councilmember Anderson. I would propose adding Plat 40, Lot 91-1 at the after the words financing options as may be needed, new language, including possible conveyance of town-owned Plat 40, Lot 91-1, comma, but not to exceed limitations of Article number 1. That would be my motion.
Mr. Moderator, I would second that motion. This is Councilor Mushin.
Okay, so under consideration right now is amending Article 5. It's not Article 5 yet. So we've had a motion, an amendment that's been made and seconded to add in the wording to pursue financing options, added in, including town-owned lot at Plat 40, 91-1, but not to exceed limitations of Article number 1. Do I have any discussion on the proposed amendment?
I have one hand raised.
Okay.
A lot of people. I got to get
Who
to
is
it.
that?
I
Oh,
got to
sorry.
get to it. There's a lot of people here. Mr. Levine?
Mr. Levine, did you have discussion on this amendment?
Yes, I believe that Mr. Councilor Anderson's proposal included the word exchange of lot, and that was not in the motion.
Yeah, I think this is Councilor Anderson. I think Mr. Levine is right. I think I said exchange or possible exchange of that lot.
Okay.
Councilor Anderson,
All right, well,
write that out for me.
Okay.
All right, so I've been corrected that the proposed amendment, the amended language that should be inserted after may be needed in the last sentence of Article 5 this language should be inserted, including exchanging town-owned lot at Plat 40, town-owned lot at Plat 40 91-1, but not to exceed limitations of Article number 1. Is that, Larry, does that represent your amendment accurately?
What I have is including exchange of town-owned lot at Plat 40 lot 91-1. That's what I have. Including exchange of town-owned lot at Plat 40 lot 91-1.
Okay. Any further discussion?
There is one more hand raised.
Okay.
It is Jesse Gerstein.
Jesse, did you want to speak to the amendment?
No.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Okay, thank you. Okay, so no more.
Okay, so, okay, great. So I'm going to call for a vote on the proposed amendment from Mr. Anderson. All in favor of the amended language, please vote aye by clicking on the raise hand icon.
$150 in favor.
Okay, and that is a clear majority. So the ayes have it. So the amendment has been approved. We now return to the main motion, which would be to approve the amended Article 5. I'll do my best to read that accurately. To authorize, as per Section 103 of the Home Rule Charter, the Town Council to enter into negotiations for the purpose of acquiring property or a portion of said property for municipal purposes located at Plat 40, Lot 83, and to further authorize the Town Council to pursue financing options as may be needed, including the exchange of town-owned lot at Plat 40 91-1, but not to exceed limitations of Article number 1. Do I have a motion to approve the amended Article 5?
Mr. Moderator, so moved.
Do I have a second?
I will second the motion.
Any further discussion?
No raised hands.
Excellent. So I will now call for a vote to approve Article 5 as amended. All those in favor, please click on the raise hand icon.
$149 and, oh, sorry, $150 in favor.
Okay, so the ayes have it. The amended Article 5 has been approved. Thank you for your patience with that. So we now move to the articles for appropriation. I'll recognize George Kroll, the Budget Committee Chair, to make a motion on the, as he sees fit on the articles for appropriation.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to move in a block, Articles 6 through 59.
I'll second that.
Okay. Okay, so Budget Committee Chair Kroll has made the motion to consider Articles 6 through 59, so all of the articles that deal with appropriation as a block motion, and that motion has been seconded. As I mentioned at the outset, this does not mean that you can't amend articles within the motion or within the block. It just means that if this motion passes and they are, that they would be voted on as one block. So do I have any discussion?
There are two that have their hands up, but before that happens, may I ask for clarification? Is your motion to move them as presented or as recommended? I don't know if there's a difference.
As recommended.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Michelle.
So the clarification means that, so let me just, so the clarification that the clerk asked for is that the ultimate vote after discussion would be to vote for the block, whether it becomes amended or not, for the dollar amount that was recommended by the budget committee. So do we
Michelle,
have any? Okay,
she had her hand up.
Yeah,
okay.
I looked at all the articles. I have a few questions, but on this one, it looks like a pretty large increase from 7,000 to 10,000, number one. Number two, in their charter.
I'm sorry, for which? I'm sorry.
Number 6.
Okay.
Which is the.
Go ahead, sorry, finish your discussion.
Yeah, and then online, I looked, and it looks like the nonprofit charter specifically says they're self-funding. Obviously, that didn't happen last year either.
I'm sorry, what was your second comment related to?
They're in their tax returns, their purpose is a nonprofit, and where they get the source of funds is self-funding.
You're speaking of Article 6, the Brownell House.
Yes.
Okay.
My only comment,
That article was,
this would be a grant that the town is giving to them.
Okay, but why is it up from 7,000 to 10,000?
okay. Is there anyone on the call who would like to speak to Ms. Steckler's question?
If not, that's okay. I can pursue it later.
Okay, well, see if anybody wants to address it now. If there is anyone, maybe from the Village Improvement Society, who wishes to address the question, please select your raise hand icon.
And I do not see them on at the moment.
Okay. Any further discussion?
There is one more person, yes.
Okay.
I'd just like to pull out Article 32.
I was going to recommend that, yeah.
Sorry, who is speaking? You could identify yourself.
Isabel Mattia.
Okay.
I'd just like to pull out Article 32.
Okay, so you can move to remove the article from the block, which then we would return to the main motion, which is the block, have further discussion on that, vote on that, and then consider Article 32 on its own.
Yeah.
Or you can offer an amendment to Article 32 and leave it in the block, but we still can address Article 32 within the block. Which would you like?
Could we do that
remove it or amend
the
it?
first thing you said, where we remove it, vote on the other stuff, and then I'll look at 32 afterwards?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Okay. Do we have a second for the proposed amendment is to remove Article 32 from the block vote consideration?
I'll second it. Curtis.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded to remove Article 32 from the block vote. Do we have any discussion? Please click on your raise hand icon and also identify yourself before you start speaking, please.
I did have several raised hands prior to that, so I will choose the new raised hands because I think they're going to be speaking to what you asked right now.
Okay.
Carol Belair, would you like to unmute and speak?
Unmute.
Did you want to speak on this removal?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
So the amendment before us, proposed amendment, is to remove Article 32 from the block vote. If anyone wants to speak to that amendment, that's what we're looking for right now.
Okay. I have 3 hands that are still up.
Okay, why don't we check with them?
Yep. Michelle, did you have?
Yes, in Article 39, which is beach parking lot.
I'm sorry, Ms. Steckler, this is only on Article 32 being removed from the block is what's under consideration. Right?
I'll wait for the next one.
Thank you. All right. I see Joanna McKenzie's hand, but I'm afraid she wants to talk about a different article. Let me ask.
Okay.
Mrs. McKenzie, were you interested in speaking
Yes,
on?
I'm interested. I'm interested.
It's a different article.
A different article.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to mute you again for a moment.
Okay.
Okay, anyone who would like to speak to the proposed amendment to remove Article 32 capital expenditure from the block motion? Please click raise hand if you have any discussion pertaining to that proposed amendment.
Mrs. Sherman?
I wanted to, it's Martha Sherman. I wanted to speak on Article 6, where the question was about the Brownell House.
Okay, that's not under consideration at the moment, so
Okay,
sorry.
that's fine. Okay.
We'll come back to you.
Anyone on Article 32 being removed from the block?
I have Mr. Gomes, Albert Gomes.
Mr. Gomes, do you wish to speak to the proposed amendment to remove Article 32 from the block vote?
No.
Okay.
Okay, there's one more. Let me see. Dominique, do you wish to speak on Article 32?
No, I just wanted to vote. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. All right, all hands are down.
Terrific. So I will call a vote on the proposed amendment to remove Article 32 from the block motion. All those in favor of removing Article 32 from the block motion and considering it later, please click on the raise hand icon. You're voting now to remove Article 32 from the block.
There are only 90 that have raised their hands. There were 90 in favor.
Still 90?
Hang on, a couple people just put their hands up. So 95 in favor.
95 in favor, okay.
Yeah.
If you would lower those hands, please, Carol.
There's a few panelists, thank you. One more, who was it? Okay. All set.
Okay, so we have 95 in favor to remove Article 32 from the block vote. So I'm now going to ask for those of you who are opposed to the proposed amendment of removing it to vote nay by clicking on the raise hand icon. So this is voting against removing Article 32 from the block vote.
There are 61 voting opposed.
Okay, so the ayes have it. So the motion to remove Article 32 from the block vote carries. So we return to the main motion, which is the motion to consider Articles 6 through 59 as a block, as recommended, except for Article 32. Do I have further discussion?
Yes, I have two hands that have gone up.
Okay.
Got to find them. Okay. Michelle?
Yeah, I was looking at Article 39, beach parking lot, and the recommended is 150% higher than last year. Why is that?
Is there anyone on who would like to speak to Ms. Steckler's question on Article 39, beach parking lot, and the significant year-over-year increase in the requested and recommended amount?
It just seems that since revenues are anticipated to be much lower, that this is a very aggressive increase.
Carol, has anyone raised their hand to speak to Ms.
No, they
Stecker's
have not.
question?
They have not.
Okay.
Well, I would just like to, I don't know if I can do this. Can I like not vote for that, but vote for all the other ones?
Well, I have a hand up. One moment. It's John Burge.
Mr. Byrd?
My understanding of that Article 39 has nothing to do with use, but that's actually, I think that's the maintenance the town does every year to grade the parking lot around April or May under assent to the town, I'm sorry, assent to CRMC. Remember, the parking lot wears out by the end of the fall. That's about what it costs to bring in the material and regrade it.
But it only cost $12,000 last year.
I can't speak to that. I'm not part of that conversation. I'm just trying to at least have us understand the purpose of this rather than.
I understand the expenses.
Okay, Ms. Stecker, I want to get into a debate on this.
Right.
It doesn't sound like there's anyone from the Beach Commission who's willing to speak on this. So you had asked a question before about whether if you could vote for less. The only way to do that would be for you to make an amendment to try to lower the amount that's been requested. You can do that either by separating that article out, as we just did with Article 32, or you can propose an amendment to provide less money for Article 39 within the block vote.
I'd like to
But that would
propose
be
an
the only
amendment.
way you could
Propose an amendment.
May I offer a suggestion before you do that?
Yeah.
This is Carol. I just wanted to give you some clarification that the 12,000 that you saw the year before was a dollar amount that they put into a fund that they used to doing the repairs. This year, the $35,000 was again needing to go into the fund, but it was recognizing that there's been increased costs for doing the grading. And instead of asking just another 12,000 that was not necessarily going to cover their costs, they asked for what they believed they were going to need.
I understand, but I'd like to amend it to 22,000.
Okay, I do have another raised hand here.
Okay, let's deal with this first. So Ms. Steckler has offered an amendment for Article 39 to reduce the appropriated amount to $22,000, I believe was the motion.
Yes, that's right.
Is there a second for that amendment to reduce Article 39 to $22,000?
I have two raised hands, but I don't know if it's anybody making a second. The only way I can find that out is if we reach out to the people that raise their hands. Ellen Canane, did you want to make a second or were you looking for discussion?
I didn't mean to hit it at all. I'm so sorry.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gomes, Donald Gomes?
Yeah, I've had some conversations with the beach committee lately.
I'm sorry, are you seconding the motion?
I am not. I just want
Okay,
to make a
we'll
point.
wait for, if it gets seconded, then we'll have discussion.
Okay.
Is there a second?
There's no further hands raised.
Okay, so the amendment fails for lack of a second. So we return to the main motion, which is to consider Articles 6 through 59, except for Article 32, as a block vote as recommended. Do we have any further discussion on the main motion?
Yes. Mrs. McKenzie?
I'd like to.
I do believe we might have two devices on at the same time, and that's why they have feedback.
I'd like to remove Article 44 from the I would like to be able to consider Article 44.
Ms. McKenzie, your amendment is to remove Article 44 from the block or to
Yes.
propose a different amount for Article 44?
I'd like to remove it.
Okay. All right, so Ms. McKenzie has proposed an amendment to the main motion, remove Article 44 from the block vote to be considered afterwards. Is there a second for Ms. McKenzie's motion?
I have a couple of raised hands. Let me go to them.
Okay.
Well, Mr. McKenzie, I'm assuming, is looking to second his wife's motion, maybe?
That's for sure.
Could you
I'm
say
sorry,
that
Mr.
again?
McKenzie, are you seconding the motion?
Yes.
The proposed amendment?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded to amend the main motion to remove Article 44 for legal services from the block vote. I'll now entertain discussion for the amendment.
Mr. McGarvey, did you have a comment?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Do I push it to get
You don't do anything. That's correct.
Okay, Mrs. McKenzie, did you have further discussion?
Yes, I would like to have a discussion of the 75,000 that is added to the solicitor's salary as to what comprises it every year. Every year, we find out that we are paying the solicitor for legal services almost double, certainly over double the amount of the salary that we decided he should have. I would like a discussion of what's in that 75,000 this year, just as I've asked every year to try and find out how we get ourselves in so many legal tangles. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Ms. McKenzie's motion to remove Article 44 from the block vote?
I guess I have one more person that put their hand up. Christina Carlson?
So I was wondering if we could hear from Councillor Anderson about this, because I understand that he's looked into this subject.
This is just to remove the article. If that succeeds and then we consider this on its own, then we would have discussion on the amount at that point. This is just to remove the article and consider it separately.
Scott, this is Councilor Anderson. I know this procedure can be confusing about when and how to discuss the substance of the article or of the amendment, but I can make one comment that might or might not influence people's decision on whether to remove it. So I don't know whether it's in order for me to.
Go ahead.
All I can say is, and the town solicitor is presumably on here. The Article 44 divides the legal budget into two sections: town solicitor, and then another line item, other legal services and litigation. The respective requests on those line items are town solicitor $52,200 for town solicitor. Second line item, other legal service and litigation, $75,000. All I can do is to read the town solicitor's description of his understanding of that based on the annual letter he supplies to the council at the end of every fiscal year. So I'm reading from last year's letter, and I'll just read the two relevant paragraphs. Our retainer amount as approved by the financial town meeting for what he calls regular work, this is last year's number, is $50,980. The contingency fund, which is the equivalent of this year's other legal services and litigation, was approved at the May 2019 meeting. The second paragraph is in line with our current practice in the upcoming fiscal year, that is this fiscal year. Extra work such as labor arbitrations, all Superior Court work, including zoning projects, etc., will continue to be paid outside the annual retainer. In complex drafting assignments, modification of the town code, town charter provision, etc., unusual matters such as complex construction projects, new areas requiring extra efforts are outside the annual retainer amount and will be billed accordingly. So that's one description of it. The other point is that sometimes there are other attorneys who need to be retained other than the town solicitor. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion of the proposed amendment to remove Article 44 from the block motion?
I have 3 hands up.
Okay. Let's give it a try.
Let's see. Mrs. Plimpton? Elise, you have to unmute yourself. Or not?
Mrs. Plimpton, do you wish to speak to the amendment on the floor? Proposed amendment. Why don't we move on, Carol?
Okay. Donald Maderas?
Medeiros, do you wish to speak to the proposed amendment?
They seem to have their hands up, but they're not responding to me asking them to unmute.
Okay. Who's the third person?
It was the author of this motion, Christina Carlson.
Am I didn't think I was the author of this motion, but okay. I just wanted to.
I'm sorry.
Please speak up. Please speak up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask a follow-up question to what Larry said. Is there any other funding going for legal matters from any other section of the budget?
Mr. Anderson, do you wish to address that question?
The only areas that I could think of, there's not any other areas that I'm aware of under the town council's control. The school department, for instance, has money in their budget for legal services. But as far as I know, and other councilors could weigh in, or other town officials, as far as I know, there's no other line item in this budget that goes to legal services. That's as far as I know.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Pinio?
Mr. Pinio, do you wish to speak to the amendment that's on the floor? Any further discussion? Any additional hands, Carol?
There is Councilor Golembeski.
Mr. Golembeski?
He needs to unmute himself. Paul, you need to unmute yourself.
There you go. I was trying and didn't want to do it. No, I just want for clarification, something Larry said just caught my attention. So that extra 75,000 is not all for the solicitor. It goes other places. It could go to other attorneys for other work. I just don't want it to be apparent that it looks like it's all going to his budget. That's all.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment on the proposed amendment on the floor?
I have no further hands.
Terrific. So I will now call for a vote on Ms. McKenzie's proposed amendment to remove Article 44, which is for legal services, from the main motion, which is the block vote. Those in favor of removing Article 44 and considering it later, please click your raise hand icon now.
Do I vote yes or no? Don't vote.
If you want to remove it, then vote now with your raise hand icon. If you don't want to remove it, we'll call for that vote next.
I have only 49 hands raised to remove. Oh, 50.
Don't.
So I vote second.
All right, can you put those hands down, please, Carol?
Yes.
All right, and for those who are opposed to the proposed amendment of removing Article 44 for legal services from the block vote, please vote now by clicking on your raise hand icon. This is if you're opposed to removing it.
I have 110 opposed to removing.
Thank you. So the nays have it. The motion has failed. So we now return to the main motion, which is to consider Articles 6 through 59, excluding Article 32, as a block vote to approve as recommended. Any further discussion on the main motion?
I do have one.
Okay.
Mr. McGarvey?
Yes, Scott McGarvey here. Article number 40 about communication on the beach, I feel needs discussion.
Do you have a question about Article 40? Mr. McGarvey?
Yes, how $14,000 works out as communication on the beach as my basic question. I don't know how to best state that, but that's my question.
Okay, we'll see if anybody's willing to address that. Is anyone willing to address Mr. McGarvey's question about the $14,000 for beach communication systems, Article 40?
Beach people needed to be there tonight.
Do we have anyone, Carol?
No one has raised their hand. I don't know if there's
Okay.
anyone on the beach commission that's on the call.
Okay, well, if they haven't raised their hand, then I'm gonna assume they don't want to address it. So
I do have.
any further discussion on the main motion?
Councilor Golembeski, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that they understand the way the motion's written. This is not a tax increase. This is out of monies that they have actually generated and have left over at the end of the year, by the way I read it. I just want the constituents to know that, that's all.
Any further discussion of the main motion?
No.
All right, so I'm going to call a vote on the main motion, which is to consider Articles 6 through 59, except Article 32, as a block to be approved as recommended. So this means if this motion passes, the budget except for Article 32 will be approved. Those in favor of moving that, those in favor of that motion, please vote yes by clicking on your raise hand icon.
$159 in favor.
Okay, so the ayes have it. The motion has passed. So we now need to return to Article 32, the capital expenditure article, which you voted remove and consider separately. I'll accept a motion to move Article 32 as recommended. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so the motion has been moved and seconded to approve Article 32 capital expenditures as recommended. I'll now open it for discussion. Anyone want to speak to this article?
I do have a hand up. Again, I just need to find that person.
Yep.
Isabel?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Isabel Mattia, and I would like to make an amendment to item 32. I'd like to make so do I do that as an amendment now to this motion, or do I make its own motion?
Yes. If you want to change it, then you would propose an amendment.
Okay.
Of the amount.
All right. So I'm proposing that we strike the item of the $47,000 new police cruiser from the capital budget and move that same sum of money from this item into the Little Compton Affordable Housing Trust. And I have some discussion to explain why I'm doing that, but I'll just start with that amendment.
Okay, so the amendment is to remove $47,000 from the capital expenditure allocation in Article 32 and to reallocate that money to be to go to the Little Compton Housing Trust. Do I have a second for that proposed amendment?
Well, I have 3 hands that went up. Oh, actually 9 hands. So I can assume that out of that 9, somebody is a second.
All right, let's confirm it.
I just need to get somebody who's no longer muted.
Seconded?
Okay. Christina Carlson, I believe, just made a second.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded to reallocate $47,000 in the capital expenditure, out of the capital expenditure budget and put it into the Little Compton Housing Trust. Do I have any discussion on the proposed amendment?
I do have 7 hands up.
Okay.
Mrs. Minash, would you like to speak? Patricia? All right, I'll try the next one down. Jana Porter, would you like to speak? Jana?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Yes, I am very much in support of this motion by Isabel. We are not meeting the state requirement for affordable housing in our town. And we are being bought out by very rich people who are buying houses in the town and are here for 1 week a year. So I totally support Isabel's motion. I think we should move that money into the Affordable Housing Trust. Thank you.
Okay.
Further discussion?
Mr. Long? Nick? Nick Long, did you have something to say? He is unmuted, but I can't hear him. I will go to the next person.
We move on to the next.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Sherman. Mr. Sherman?
Hello, this is Steve Sherman. I also support Isabel's amendment as moved.
Okay. I see Mrs. Minach is unmuted now. Did you have something to say? Patricia?
No.
Okay, thank you. I think I have one more. Mrs. Turcott?
Hands up, yeah.
Oh, all right. I need to promote her in order to allow her to talk. Let me try that.
Okay.
Mrs. Turcott, did you want to speak?
No, I didn't know how that got hit. I must have hit it by mistake.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I still have 4 hands up. Let me check those.
Okay.
Mrs. McKenzie, did you want to speak on this subject?
I'm absolutely in support of this motion. We have needed this for years, and finally we have a moment where we might be able to get it. So I am right behind Isabel in her motion.
Thank you. Mr. McKenzie, you had your hand up as well?
Yes, and this is William McKenzie, and I have to go to another. I just have to go to another room to get out of. Joan and I are signed in separately. The one thing that I would like to do is hear from Isabel, because I think she said she had something more to expand upon why she had made those choices, and I think that would be very.
Mr. McKenzie, she'll have an opportunity. Do you have anything you want to say to speak to the motion? Okay, anyone else? Carol?
No.
Any further discussion
Well,
on the proposed amendment?
there are two on the panelist side,
Okay.
which would be Mrs. McHugh.
Hey, yeah, while I agree that more funding is needed for the affordable housing in Little Compton, I disagree with taking funds out of the police. I met with the chief and reviewed his budget, and they are actually in need of funds for necessities. So I would encourage others to, on this panel, to really attend the budget committee meetings to get a little more knowledge and a little more, awareness of the budget before, coming forward with such a slash.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr.
Do we have anything?
Counselor Golembeski?
Yeah, I'm just a question on the motion itself to the moderator. I mean, is that taking 47,000 from the original appropriated amount from 1920? Or is that taking out of the increased 200,000, 47,000 and moving it over? How was that motion phrased?
The way I heard it was the amount that we would be voting on, the recommended amount for fiscal 2021, the upcoming fiscal year starting tomorrow, that $47,000 of the 200 would be moved to the housing trust rather than being used to procure a new police cruiser. I don't know if Isabel can correct me if I have that wrong, but that was my understanding of her proposed amendment.
Can you hear me? That's correct.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Any further discussion on the proposed amendment to reduce Article 32 capital expenditures from
Yes, I have
currently
a couple of residents and
currently recommended at 200,000 and proposed amendment to divert 47,000 of that to the housing trust.
Yep.
Is there further discussion, Carol?
Yes, there are two residents
Okay.
and one counselor.
Okay.
Mr. Rotman?
Hi, this is Bob Rotman. One of the things I'd like to put forward is that we could discuss, maybe somebody from the town council, when and how the housing trust will have access to this money. I mean, a lot of the money we have available to us is only once a year, and it would be helpful if this was a little more flexible so that we could have it modified by the town council instead of having to wait a year to have the money spent.
All right. I'm going to rule that as not relevant to the amendment. So any further discussion of the proposed amendment of reallocating $47,000 to the housing trust?
Yes, Mr. Gomez?
Hi, I support Jennifer McHugh's statement. I don't think we should be in a position of defunding our police. I understand, I agree that there's a need for the affordable housing for some of our citizens, but the idea of defunding police is abhorrent to me. So in agreement with McHugh and against pulling the money.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Thomas Moore? Mr. Moore? He is unmuted, but I can't hear him.
Yeah, I can't either. Anyone else?
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, this is Council Member Larry Anderson. I definitely support the goal and the need to increase funding for the housing trust. But I have some concern about the procedure that's being proposed here. The article 32 is a single line item capital expenditure. I believe that what Isabel is looking at is a page 20 capital budget projects projection. We're not voting on a line item budget in the capital budgets. Article 32. We're basically voting for a lump sum that goes into an account that, and perhaps Mr. Mushin or Town Administrator Texera can weigh in on this. And I don't have the charter language in front of me, but the capital fund is unlike other funds in that it rolls over and it's actually spent in a discretionary way, in a sense, by authority of the council. So it's not clear to me that procedurally it's in order to specify a line item from this, that it's in order to require that a certain portion of this fund be, this would deplete the capital budget fund in a way that would affect the council's discretion. It's just an observation, and I think perhaps other officials might help me out as to what the nature of this article is. Thank you. But I want to say that I do support the intent of and perhaps the council should be doing more in proposing funds for this purpose.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
This is Councilor Mushin. The statement that Mr. Anderson has made, I would concur with. To line item remove or add to the capital budget in this approval process defeats the purpose of how it's administered. It's administered as a first in, first out. As things become available, one can purchase using capital funds things that are appropriate to it. I too believe that we have much more work to do in affordable housing. I don't believe that the capital fund is the way in which we would do that. We've set aside a portion of building fees which are available to the housing trust. And to Mr. Rotman's concern, that will require some coordination, and I will commit to the fact that that's what we need to do in order to advance a housing project that's been proposed. But I would caution against defining for the capital plan what dollars are going to come out of it in fiscal 21 when we're not there yet, and it may not be the most advantageous to the town expenditure of capital funds.
Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Do I get a chance to speak about it, or?
Well,
I'm sorry?
I have another hand in, and I
Identify
believe
yourself.
Isabel wants to talk again.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan, did you have something to say?
Yes, thank you. I'm very interested in that two council members feel that we should increase the affordable housing amount of money we have, but it doesn't seem like there's anything in the budget that does that. And it is strikingly curious to me as to why you would support someone's intent, but there is nothing in the town's budget to annually increase a shortcoming that we've had as a town for a very long time. And so regardless of this motion's success or failure, I think the budget committee and the town council should take a very serious look at a chronic problem in this town, and it has done really nothing to address it in a very long time.
Isabel, did you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, please.
Sure, go ahead.
So, hi, I'm Isabel Mattia. I don't have the deep knowledge of exactly how these documents work, so I'm just doing the best I can reading the information that I've been sent. But as I looked through this proposal, I noticed that we purchased a new police cruiser in 2020 for $35,488. We're being asked to purchase another one this year for $47,000. When I look forward at the proposal, there's no car in 2022, but then we are asked we're projecting that we will be asked for another police car for $45,000 in 2023, and yet another one for $45,000 in 2024. That's over $170,000 in 5 years for 4 brand new police cars. Well, we'd probably, and I will say that I haven't touched the over $1 million police department budget. This is I'm just regarding whether we really need to be purchasing this many new vehicles in this short amount of time. Well, we'd probably all love to update our cars more frequently than we do now. This seems excessive to me. And I think of our budget as a time where we as a town collectively get to decide where we want to invest our public money. And I'm asking this year that we take a break from buying a new police car and put that money into housing. Maybe I didn't propose the amendment exactly perfectly, but I'd like to figure out a way to think about doing this as a community. I am a member of the Little Compton Housing Trust, although I want to be really clear that I'm coming to you right now as myself, a private citizen, and not as a representative of that body. But I am speaking to this from my perspective, engaging with that group. I joined the LC Housing Trust when a dear friend of mine who's an artist and also was working in a nearby restaurant was trying to purchase her first home and wanted to move to Little Compton with her husband and her baby, and they couldn't afford to find a place here. This is a hardworking mom and a 2-income home, and there was no place for her that she could afford. I also know many local farm employees who travel from cities and towns far away to get to their farm jobs in the wee hours of the morning, to pick, plant, and produce the food that we enjoy and build the rural community that we all hold so dear. I asked one of these young women who travels nearly 2 hours every morning why she doesn't just live here, and she laughed at me and said, because I can't afford to. So many of us know people in their 20s and 30s who grew up here and wish they could live here, but they can't afford to live here, so they've had to move elsewhere. Many of us know people in town who are planning to retire and move to fixed incomes and wish to have a manageable place to grow old in near their grandchildren, and who fear that they won't be able to find that here. I've sat on the housing board for, I think, almost a year now, and I've seen that when ideas for creative solutions to address these issues come up, we don't have the resources or the nimbleness to follow through on them. Taking this $47,000 for one of 4 new police cars in 5 years and reallocating that money into housing would nearly double, I want people to understand this, would nearly double the total amount of money that this town right now has invested in housing affordability. 1 car. It would bring us much closer to being able to purchase a property, to build, or to renovate for the purpose of affordable housing. When we identify a property that would be a good candidate, we do not currently have the funds to meaningfully present a plan for this property, which means that we don't have the nimbleness to move at the pace of the housing market. Also, Bob brought up a point that our approval method is too slow as well for that same thing.
Isabel, I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
Okay, I'm almost finished. With proper funding, we could be working collaboratively with local residents, with nonprofit organizations, and with Rhode Island Housing to create affordable housing plans that are informed by our local circumstances and by the way that our town is set up and who's living in it. At the moment, we are perceived as a community that does not wish to make meaningful investments in housing affordability, which hinders progress on this issue and makes people not want to work with us. This proposed amendment would give us the opportunity to start working to change that. Currently, 47% of Little Compton renters and 39% of homeowners are considered cost burdened, which means that they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. That's nearly half of the people who rent here are cost burdened and spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Little Compton has 9 units that can be classified as affordable housing for folks with qualifying incomes. That means that we have more police officers in this town than we have affordable homes. Investing.
Isabel, could you please wrap up?
Yes, investing in
Sorry,
housing.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you please wrap up?
I'm sorry, I'm almost finished, and I just really want people to
Please
understand
hurry up.
where we're standing in this issue, which is so important to the sustainability of our community. We need to have this town be a place where young families can establish themselves and where people can afford to live and work in. If we want to have our school full of children, we need to be able to have people who have children afford to live here. And this is a way for us to invest in housing by just skipping one cop car this year that will not increase our budget as a town. You've already allocated that money. I'm asking you to reconsider it. And we can do this as a town through a vote. So I'd just like to thank everyone for considering this little swap, which won't increase the budget, but will make a meaningful investment into housing affordability. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Yeah, Scott, Gary Mataronis. I'd just like to say that capital plan is a basis for future expenditures. And it's not really anything that's set in stone. It's just to try to grasp hold of what the needs of the future are going to be. And as far as affordable housing, we did have a plan that was going to go forward up where the old Country Harvest was, and that was shut down by the neighbors, and that would have been quite a facility for affordable housing. And if anybody goes by the town hall and looks at the kind of shape the town hall is in, and you should, we're going to have a real problem there. And part of this capital expenditure is going to go to repair the town hall before we really have a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Yes, I have a council member and then 4 other residents.
Okay.
Mr. Moore, I see you're unmuted now. Are you able to speak? Thomas Moore, can you speak? Okay. Mrs. Lise Plimpton, you are on mute. If you want to talk, you need to unmute yourself. Sorry. One more. Claudia McNeil.
Yes.
Are you able to speak?
Claudia, come on.
Somebody's talking, but I don't think it's any of the
Can
people.
you hear me, Carol? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I wholeheartedly support Isabel's
Could you please
amendment.
could you please identify yourself?
Oh,
we don't know who's speaking.
sorry. Claudia McNeil.
Okay,
I
thank you.
wholeheartedly support Isabel's amendment. We've needed funding for the housing trust for a long time, especially regarding elderly who would like to stay in this community and they can't afford to stay here. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Long?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Yes.
Nicholas Long. I recognize Councillor Anderson's perspective and also Councillor Mataronis that perhaps this is more symbolic than substantive at this point, but I think that's in a way all the more reason why we should vote for this. We're clearly have not made a lot of progress on affordable housing, and this would be a small step in the right direction. So I'm in favor of this amendment.
Okay. Jana Porter, did you have something to say? Jana, you need to unmute yourself.
I totally support what Nick just said. I think our town is about to turn into a summer home for people that have houses in a million different places. And if we want to keep our town a mix of socioeconomic groups and workmen, and the way it is now, we've got to do something about affordable housing. And you may not like Isabel's proposal, but I urge you to consider this issue, please.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Councilor Golembiski?
Yeah, Mr. Moderator, just a point on the new cruiser every year. Isabel had mentioned that. And that, believe it or not, came from years of negotiating and working with a budget with the police department. That's not just the cost of the cruiser. That's the cost of outfitting it and all the other stuff that goes with it to get one on the road. We were spending exorbitant amounts of money on repair because of the mileage they put on the cruisers every year. And we found out that it was just more cost effective to buy a new cruiser every year than it was to try and keep them going. And I'm talking replacing engines, transmissions, rear ends. It just got cost prohibitive to keep the cars. So I'm not taking a stand on the validity or the nobility of whatever the motion is. I'm just trying to where this car comes from. It's not done out of just to give them a new ride. It's done because of cost effectiveness. Thank you.
Carol?
Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Carol, George Kroll, Budget Committee.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The housing trust, nothing stopping the housing trust from going before the council and asking for money to be put in an article to be put in the warrant. Taking it out of the capital expenditure is the wrong place to do it. And I'd like to also go back and answer with Janet Porter when she said that people come here and they may have a house here for a week. Those people are paying taxes here. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
No.
Okay. So to remind everyone, we have an proposed amendment on the floor, which is to amend Article 32, capital expenditures, to divert $47,000 from the capital expenditure line to the Little Compton Housing Trust. Those in favor of that amendment, please vote aye by the raise hand icon. So if you vote now with the raise hand icon, you are voting in favor of reducing the capital budget by $47,000 and moving that money to the Little Compton Housing Trust.
I have 70 that are in favor.
Okay, you please lower the hands, Carol.
And just for correction, there were 3 more that went up just as I said that, so 73 total.
Okay, so it's 73 ayes. I'll now ask the nays to vote. So those who oppose the amendment to reduce Article 32 for capital expenditures by $47,000 and move that money to Little Compton and reallocate that money to Little Compton Housing Trust, please vote now if you oppose that amendment. All right, Carol, looks like the nays have it from my reading.
Yes, I have
you agree with that?
102 that are against or opposed.
Okay. Okay, so the motion fails. We now return to the main motion on the floor, which is Article 32, capital expenditures at the recommended amount of $200,000. Do I have any further discussion on Article 32?
I'm not sure if this is a leftover hand from voting or not. Ms. Canane, did you want to speak?
I do. I would like to make an amendment to increase the amount of Article 32 from 200,000 to 250,000, and that 50,000 would be committed to the housing trust. I think it would make a very small difference in what we pay for taxes, and it would confirm our support for building affordable housing here in Little Compton that is so badly needed.
Thank you. So Ms. Kinane proposed an amendment, proposed amendment to increase Article 32 by $50,000 to $250,000. Is there a second for Ms. Kinane's motion?
Yes, there are several hands that have gone up as seconds. There's 8
Okay.
hands gone up.
All right, can you put those down, please, Carol?
Yes.
So the proposed amendment has been made and seconded to increase Article 32 for capital expenditures by $50,000 to $250,000. Any discussion?
Yes, 1 hand has gone up. I just need to find it.
Okay.
Virginia Greenwood, you put your hand up.
Yes, I did. I guess I am confused by the proposed amendment as voiced by the moderator because it does not designate the funds, the additional funds to the Housing Trust, which was the import of the movement. So if we're voting to increase the capital expenditures, how do we know that that additional 50,000 is going to go where she wanted it to go, where the people who want the increased housing budget to go?
Mr. Moderator?
All right, so her amendment was to increase the line item from $200,000 to $250,000 for capital expenditures. As I believe was spoken to before by the counselors, and they can speak to this, this is a discretionary pool of money. So the intent may be to raise it by the 50,000, but I'll let the counselors, Mr. Mushin or Mr. Anderson, somebody wants to speak to the ability to designate that 50,000 in the capital budget for a specific use.
This is Counselor
Does
Mushin.
anyone want to speak to that?
At this point in time, I'm not aware of an initiative by someone to bring this forward that has come before tonight. Were this capital budget to be increased to a $250,000 level, an application by the Housing Trust to the town administrator to bring to the council would certainly be appropriate to invest it in that fashion. That, to my knowledge, has not yet happened.
Any further discussion of the proposed amendment?
This is Council Member Anderson, and again, I have concerns about the certainty that a future council would be required to spend the money for that purpose, but so I think that, and I can't speak for, I can speak for the council that I'm on, but remember that I'll be blunt about this. There'll be an election in a few months, so the council spending this money may or may not act on the intent of this amount, but I think, as Mr. Mushin said, it would be up to the supporters of affordable housing to twist the arms of the council to make sure that's what it gets spent for. So it's a political task going forward to make sure that that money is spent for the purpose that the voters would now want it spent for if this were to prevail.
Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Yes, I have Mrs. Kinane and Mrs. Stecker.
This is Mrs. Kinane. When I look at page 20, the capital budget projects projection, it would seem to me that each project and expense, the same could be said of each of them, that there's no guarantee that the money would be spent for any of those things. But if the intent of the electors here in this meeting is to make a commitment to, a financial commitment to affordable housing, then it could be added to this list of projects, projected projects for capital budget. And the question I would have is, would the town council, and the members on the town council could perhaps speak now, each of them, would they accept an application from the Housing Commission in the coming month, let's say, for the request of $50,000 and explain, well, an application? Though it wasn't done before this meeting, given the circumstances.
I'm not going to interview the town council members and ask them individually to commit to that. I'm sorry.
Well, could
Is there
I
any
ask
further
Bob
discussion?
Mushin then, the chair, would he accept an application from the Housing Authority for $50,000 to be added to the capital budget projects?
I believe he already said he would, but Mr. Mushin, if you want to respond.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. That's exactly how things get into the capital plan. Department heads come forward, other interested parties come forward and say, I'd like my project to be considered. The town administrator and I have worked together. Ultimately, it will be him bringing the recommendation forward. But yes, that is the way that it's to be done.
And you would accept such an application in the coming month, for instance, for $50,000 from the Housing Authority, not next year, but this year for this capital budget?
There is not a, let me answer the question this way. There is not a constraint on when it appears as a candidate project as to when it can be executed. Yes, if something came along tomorrow morning, which is the first day of the fiscal year, and it could be then scheduled for a discussion, and the council, I won't speak for the other members, but if the council were to consider it and decide that it was appropriate that it be part of the capital budget for the year or for a future year, then yes, that's the way that it would be done.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Michelle Stecker?
I just wanted to say that it was easy for me to look through this budget and think of all sorts of things I'd like to change, but it's too late. And I should have gone to the budget meetings. I think it's fine. I think the budget's great. And next year I'm going to be much more proactive. But it's too late now, I think.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
Mrs. McKenzie?
I'd like to, in fact, add that I would like this done on July 1st of this year. I am that strongly supportive of this amendment. So I would like the amendment to come into effect on July 1st, 2000.
Thank you. I'm sorry, are you finished, Mrs. McKenzie?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion on the proposed amendment?
No.
Okay, so I will now ask for a vote on the proposed, Mrs. Kinane's proposed amendment of increasing Article 32 for capital expenditures from $200,000 to $250,000. If you're in favor of that amendment, please click the raise hand icon now.
We have 81 in favor.
All right, we have 81 votes in favor. I'll now ask the nays to vote by clicking the raise hand icon if you are against, or if you vote against the amendment to increase Article 32 capital expenditures by $50,000 to $250,000. Please click the raise hand icon now.
We have 98 opposed.
Thank you. So the proposed amendment fails. We now return to Article 32, the main motion on the floor, which is to approve Article 32 for capital expenditures at the recommended amount of $200,000. Any further discussion?
One hand. Mrs. McKenzie? Mrs. McKenzie?
Any further discussion?
Miss Joanna McKenzie's hand is up, but she's on mute.
Okay, I came forward and asked the moderator to amend the last stroke. It was amended to pay the $50,000 on July 1st. He did not give me.
Mrs. McKenzie, I'm sorry, that was not the motion.
That was the motion that I tried to amend. And
I'm sorry, you did not do it properly.
Not
Carol,
do it properly.
Carol, would you please mute Mrs. McKenzie? Any further discussion on the motion on the table, Article 32 for capital expenditures at the recommended amount of $200,000?
Donald Gomes, you have your hand up?
I was looking at the vote. I thought we were voting on the motion.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Miss Albert Gomes, did you wish to speak?
We're still in the discussion phase for Article 32.
Okay, he put his hand down. Mary Mara, were you looking to speak?
No, I wanted to vote. I thought I was voting. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so those in favor of Article 32, capital expenditures at the recommended amount of $200,000, please vote aye by clicking the raise hand icon.
Yes.
No, it's
134 in favor.
Okay, would you put those hands down, please, Carol?
Yes.
Those opposed to Article 32, capital expenditures at the recommended amount of $200,000, please vote nay by clicking on the raise hand icon.
We have 25 that are opposed.
Okay, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Article 32 is approved at the recommended amount. We have a few motions, a few articles of business still left. Before I move to those, I'd like to recognize Council President Mushin to present the annual report of the Pension Committee pursuant to Article 48.
At the beginning of fiscal year 19, the assets of the pension plan had a market value of $10,866,000. At the end of the year, the plan assets had a market value of $11,337,000. The resulting unfunded actuarial accrued liability was $1,973,000 and a funded ratio of 85.7, which was about a half a point below what it was last year. The committee is requesting that $433,569 be appropriated at this meeting for contribution to the plan, and that has been voted already. As of July 1st, there were 94 persons in the plan, 46 active, 37 retired, and 11 vested. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got 3 articles of business still to go. Article 60, to order a tax of at least $13,160,000, but no more than $13,180,000 to be levied and assessed on the rateable property in said town and the inhabitants thereof for the 2020 tax year for the payment of town debts and interest, for the support of schools, for the support of maintenance for the poor, for the building, repairing, and amending of highways, for the improvement and manner deemed fit of any property belonging to the town, for all necessary charges and expenses whatsoever arising within said town, whether incidental or not to the above, and for any and all purposes authorized by law. Do I have a motion to approve Article 60 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor for Article 60 as presented, please vote aye by clicking the raise hand icon.
There are, okay, go ahead. Jumping the gun. $140 in favor.
Okay, thank you. The ayes have it. Article 60 prevails as presented. Article 61, to authorize the town treasurer to borrow from time to time up to $300,000 in anticipation of taxes and give the negotiable note or notes of the town therefore. Do I have a motion to approve Article 61 as presented?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor of Article 61 as presented, please click the raise hand icon.
Well, 136 in favor.
Okay, the ayes have it. Article 61 prevails as presented. The last order of business before the meeting tonight is the elections for Budget Committee. We have 2 open positions and we have 2 candidates. Those in favor, those wanting to vote for Christopher Goulart of 471 West Main Road for a position on the Budget Committee, please click the raise hand icon. Since Chris only needed 1 vote, he clearly is back on the Budget Committee, so thank you. For the other candidate, Jenna Peterson Magnuski, 51 Stone Church Road. Those wanting to vote for Jenna for a position on the Budget Committee, please click the raise hand icon now. Thank you. Jenna has also been duly elected. Is there any other business that may legally come before this annual financial town meeting? If so, please let us know now. Thank you. I declare this meeting dissolved. Thank you all for your patience. Good night.
Good night.
On a budget.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.